at this stage. Nice and neat and tidy go the lead three out of Brundle and Nelson. And Stuart Wiltshire closing, but the closer he gets, the more his car will be affected by the aerodynamics of the race leader Jacopo Sebastiani, and therefore you then start to overwork the tyres. On what is a warm day at Snetterton, you start to affect the air going into the radiators, which raises the engine temperature, so it's a difficult thing. And well, Stuart Wiltshire, if he can close, he then just needs to really work out where to pick his moment, because there might not be that many opportunities for him, and he also needs to consider, if he tries to attempt a move and it doesn't come off, that Shane Kelly's not too far away. Neither is George Lyne or that car there, Robbie Watts, following his spin. So the top five have opened up quite a sizable gap between themselves and Gino Rossi, who sits there in 6th place. It's going to be Cian Carey in 7th place, Oliver Cyril in 8th place, and Mark Harrison, who completes the top 9 by the look of things, and Dave Gillette will be in 10th position. Race leader, though, turning his way out of Palmer, down the kink towards what is the braking area for Agostini, and looks as though, if anything, the gap between first and second has come out a little bit, but without question the number 11 car of Shane Kelly has closed the gap on Stuart Wiltshire a shade. Not by huge amounts, but just visually to the eye it looks as though the gaps are changing in a minute way, and that might be then the opportunity for Shane Kelly to perhaps close in on Stuart Wiltshire. And if that happens and those two start to squabble, it lets Jacopo Sebastiani back off again and will allow him to pull away. So down the Bentley straight yet again they will go. Here is Tony Bishop. He is still trying to charge his way up through the order following his spin early on, and that looks like a front puncher actually for Tony Bishop. I don't think that was a mistake from Tony. It looked as though the front right was a little bit flat as he came down the start finish line. Round through Coram, up towards the left-hander at Murray's, and Jacopo Sebastiani is going to chalk another lap into the book. He's led every lap so far and is now going to be leading as they head onto what should be the last lap of the race. This is the fight for 9th and 10th position. The Magic Motorsport car, number 28, in the hands of Mark Harrison, under pressure from Dave Gillette's blue and yellow machine that sits behind. Both of these drivers have been regulars in the 2017 championship, and they're having a super little squabble towards the tail end of the field as they go over the start-finish line. So they've got another 3 miles to sort out who's going to finish in 9th and who's going to finish in 10th position, because the leaders are now on their last lap of the race, turning their way up towards Agostini. Jacopo Sebastiani seems to have controlled this race beautifully well, other than maybe a very slight mistake running wide at the first corner on cold tyres, which we can certainly let him off for. He has driven meticulously over the course of the last 8.5 laps and is now heading towards potentially his first victory of the season for Stuart Wiltshire. Second place would still represent his best result of the season so far. The driver that comes into this weekend lying 5th in the championship, outscoring the likes of Shane Kelly and Cian Carey and Robbie Watt, so that is going to do his championship aspirations no harm at all. But it's all about Jacopo Sebastiani, who, best part of 12 months since his last win in F3 Cup, is going to claim surely a first victory of the season here. All he needs to do is stay neat and tidy through the bomb hole. I think Stuart Wiltshire has settled for second because he's just dropped that little bit further back on this last lap of the race. So Jacopo Sebastiani safely through Coreham, neat and tidy onto the brakes, in towards the left-hander at Murray's, and accelerating his way towards the checkered flag here at Snetterton, and a first victory of the season in the 2017 F3 Cup. Jacopo Sebastiani claims the first win of the weekend and his first win of the season. Stuart Wiltshire comes through in a season's best second position, and a hard-charging Shane Kelly, after the problems at the start, will come through and finish in third position. So 3 very happy-looking drivers will head towards the podium very shortly here at Snetterton for what has been a great first race of 3 of the weekend. Confirmation then, Jacopo Sebastiani claims the win from Stuart Wiltshire in second and Shane Kelly in third. George Lyne was 4th, ahead of Robbie Watts in 5th, with Gino Ussi in 6th place. Then it was Cian Carey, Oliver Cyril, Mark Harrison and Dave Gillette that complete the top 10. So 3 very happy drivers heading towards the podium at Snetterton. Shane Kelly receives his third place trophy. The second place trophy will go the way of a delighted Stuart Wiltshire, one of the real characters of F3 Cup. But the top step of the podium and his first win of the year goes the way of Jacopo Sebastiani. Let's hear from our winners on the podium.
First win of the year, championship leader. That was pretty close, I thought.
I got there in the end. It's been long in the waiting, and I finally made it to get it all together. So pole and fastest lap and win is all good. All good.
You like this circuit then?
I love this circuit. But actually I love all the British circuits. So it's just not only this one. It's today things happen. They worked out.
Just like old times. Normally I come out on top, but on this occasion Jacko got the better of me. So.
And do you think you can beat him tomorrow?
Of course, yeah. It's a foregone conclusion. A little bit of tinkering overnight, and he's history.
A poor start, I think. Any issues there?
Yeah, no, me. I think a better start than a few before. But yeah, we got away, and there's a bit of a scramble at the first corner. I think someone hit Tony, and then I saw that, and he moved, and I went to the outside, so I had to stay on the outside, try and stay out of trouble there, and that let a few through, and just kept pushing, and Robbie had it on this out, but closed down to Stuart, and got near to him, but I couldn't really do a lot. We were sort of slightly hampered around sort of Palmer with the oil down, and where you could sort of maybe run it through and get some pace. We were stuck a little bit there, but yeah, P3 is still good points. We need to keep close to Jacopo, and yeah, push for next time.
fourth place at the moment, whilst Jacopo Sebastiani is starting to pull away from the rest of the pack, which are still embroiled within their individual battles. This is Tony Bishop fighting away with Dave Gillett, and right behind them is the number 9 car of Baptiste Leonard as well. So they are still trying to work out as to who is going to just occupy the final couple of places inside the top 10, whilst the overall race leaders are now stretching their legs onto the Bentley Straight for the first lap. Jacopo Sebastiani has led every himself a huge chunk of work to do in this one. Over the start-finish line they will very shortly go, and George Line now coming under pressure from Wade Eastwood, who's trying to fight back. They're both picking up the slipstream of the car ahead, which is Stuart Wiltshire, and this might just allow Jacopo Sebastiani to pull away. George Line and Wade Eastwood side by side through Ritchie's corner. Around the outside goes Wade Eastwood to take third place away. Well, having lost the position down at Agostini on the lap prior, he returns the favour to George Line and reasserts himself back into the final podium place once more, ahead, of course, of the reigning champion who finished on the podium for the first time this season, last time out. So through the left-hander at Palmer, they'll work their way. Wade Eastwood, now that he's got himself ahead of George Line, is trying to pull away and gap the car of George Line, who is coming under an ever-increasing amount of pressure now already by Robbie Watts, who is pretty close to him as they turn their way through Agostini this time through. The top half a dozen, though, are still on the same straight between the exit of Agostini and the entrance to Hamilton, so still not huge amounts of daylight between them all. But for Robbie Watts, if he can get himself into the slipstream of George Line through Williams, that's the critical part of the circuit, because that is what gives you the run then onto the Bentley Straight. And Wade Eastwood this time in third place has got a good tow here. He's going to pick up the slipstream off Stuart Wiltshire and might be able to propel himself through into second place. He's sitting directly behind the largely grey and red car. Jinks out from behind to try and get the inside line, but then realises yet that the straight is running out. So for the moment, he's got to be patient. He's got to be content with third position. Bounces over the curbs as they turn their way through Nelson. He needs to attack and defend at the same time, because he's got reigning champion George Line right behind him. As they then thread their way through the right-hander at Coram, it is still that white and light blue car of Jacopo Sebastiani, already twice a race winner this weekend, that continues to lead from Stuart Wiltshire in second position. Third at the moment is still going to be the car of Wade Eastwood, who is still under pressure from George Line. Over the start-finish line now goes Sebastiani from Wiltshire, Wade Eastwood from George Line, then Robbie Watts, who's got Cian Carey still very close for company. That black car, but with its green flashes in the hands of the Irishman. So that's the top six, all still within touching distance of each other. Again, Wade Eastwood closes ever more onto the gearbox of Stuart Wiltshire as they headed onto the brakes at Wilson, and then up the short straight up towards the left-hander at Palmer. This is now just allowing Jacopo Sebastiani in the lead of the race to pull away, because Stuart Wiltshire and Wade Eastwood at the moment are concentrating on squabbling over second and third places, which is slowing them down and just allowing already 2 times race winner this weekend Sebastiani to pull away ever more. Out of Agostini they'll go. George Line is not too far away as well. He would dearly like to try and get himself into the podium places again, if at all he can. But up towards Oggies, through the right-hander they'll go, and then it's the right-hand sweep again at Williams, and this is the important part for Wade Eastwood. He's not quite as close this time through as he was, I don't think, on the lap prior, and on the lap prior he couldn't quite get the job done before they headed into the braking area for Brundle and Nelson. Down the Bentley Straight they'll go. No such trouble of watching in his mirrors for Jacopo Sebastiani. Again, Wade Eastwood just jinks out from behind Stuart Wiltshire, but that's more to distract Stuart Wiltshire rather than an opportunity to try and work his way through and past. He's ever closer, though, as they head out of Brundle and Nelson this time. 3 now fighting away for what is second, third and fourth position, and you can see just how much this has allowed Jacopo Sebastiani to build his advantage. Daylight between himself and then a trio fighting over second, third and fourth place, with Wade Eastwood again much braver on the brakes, much deeper into the corner, but slower coming out as a result of it. So Stuart Wiltshire is able to gain momentum on the way out of the corner, having lost it on the way in. Over the start-finish line they'll go. Order still remaining the same. Wiltshire under pressure from Wade Eastwood. Wade Eastwood has got the number 1 car of George Line, that red and white car, right with him as they turn their way through what is Ritchie's corner, and from there, of course, they're onto the brakes and up towards the right-hander at Wilson, the renamed corner. It used to be called Montreal, but now named Wilson after the late great Justin Wilson, who Jonathan Palmer, owner of Snetterton, did so much for in his early career. So through Palmer they'll go, and then starting to head down the short straight in towards the braking area for Agostini. Stuart Wiltshire all of a sudden has had a better first half of this lap than Wade Eastwood, so the gap between second and third has just come out a little bit. Wade Eastwood still under pressure though from George Line, sits behind in fourth place. Fifth place is now Cian Carey, so Cian Carey's got himself ahead of Robbie Watts somewhere around the circuit, so the Irishman gaining the place, that being fifth at the moment, and Robbie Watts down to sixth, but plenty of time for him to return the favour if he chooses to do so, as they again turn their way through the right-hander at Williams onto the Bentley straight yet again. Here is Mark Harrison squabbling away still with Tony Bishop. They've had pretty much a race-long battle so far, and Dave Gillard is not too far away as well at the wheel of the blue and yellow machine, so that little trio just making their way onto the Bentley straight. Are we going to have any shuffles in the order? Well, they are picking up the slipstreams from each other, but again, I suspect that catching is one thing, getting past down the Bentley straight is probably another. Robbie Watts, having had to give second best to the Irishman Cian Carey, now needs to make sure he doesn't drop further down through the order, because the number 10 car of Gino Ussi is not too far away. As over the start-finish line goes Jacopo Sebastiani, and what is still this great battle for second and third place. Wade Eastwood has gathered his thoughts, is starting to attack again the car of Stuart Wiltshire as they come over the start-finish line, picks up a good tow again towards the top end of the Senna straight, but frustratingly isn't quite close enough again, so Stuart Wiltshire still managing to hang on to the place. As for the trio further back, the order still remains the same: Mark Harrison, Tony Bishop and then Dave Gillett, but they might be fighting for places down towards the bottom of the top 10, but it's a super little battle where they're really having to roll their sleeves up and slug it out between each other as they turn their way round through Ritchie's Corner. Our race leader is already on his way down towards Agostini, with again Stuart Wiltshire in second place, having to just watch his mirrors. Wade Eastwood is there or thereabouts, a very slight snatch brake, the unloaded wheel from the car in third position in the hands of Wade Eastwood. Then he turns his way up towards the left-hander at Hamilton. Is he going to have a quick look here? No, thought about it, I thought briefly, as they head in towards Oggies, and he's going to try and get the overlap on the way out, is he? No, Stuart Wiltshire is wise to that. Wade Eastwood can't quite get the job done there, but he's as close as he's been this time round through Williams, and this could be the pivotal lap as far as Wade Eastwood is concerned, because he's absolutely in the slipstream of Stuart Wiltshire. And is he going to try a move this time as they head up towards Brundle and Nelson? He's as close as he's been. He has again a very quick look, more to distract the car ahead rather than anything else. Elsewhere down through the order, Cian Carey and Robbie Watts go wheel to wheel, and it looks so Robbie Watts has picked the pocket of the Irishman and returned the favour. I thought he might, and he goes through to retake up another place. So Robbie Watts back up to fifth, Cian Carey back down into sixth position at the moment, and Gino Ussi not quite close enough to capitalise either. He remains just a little bit further adrift in seventh place at the wheel of his number 10 machine. So over the start-finish line comes a trio that is now fully formed for second, third and fourth position, because George Line has managed to catch back up again with both Stuart Wiltshire and Wade Eastwood, largely because they've been squabbling away again. So it's three fighting over what are just two podium places. Then it's Robbie Watts back in fifth position, Cian Carey right on his boot lid in sixth position, as this time Wade Eastwood tries the outside line at Wilson, needs to make sure he closes the door on what is George Line as well. So great fighting going on, and well, for Wade Eastwood, he's got to attack and defend, and how many times have we said that so far this weekend? Look at how close he is to Stuart Wiltshire. The tail end of his Dallara wagging a little bit under acceleration as he tries to get the power on, and he needs to, because George Line this time is having a look, had a quick look one way, had a look the other, then tries the outside line to try and cut back on the exit of the corner, does Wade Eastwood. Needs to be careful that he doesn't make contact with the nose of George Line, who poked it up the inside briefly and then decided that, yeah, maybe discretion is the better part of valour here in what is a great little fight that's been really building over the course of the last few laps. Sideways moment again from Wade Eastwood. Now either the tyres are giving up the ghost, or he's just planting his right foot on the pedal a bit too early. He's under pressure from George Line. He's also picking up the slipstream from the car in second place. Handsome lead for Jacopo Sebastiani, but look at the fight heading down the Bentley straight for second, third and fourth place. George Line attacks Wade Eastwood, who tries to jink up the inside of Stuart Wiltshire and takes second place away as Wade Eastwood. So up to second for Wade Eastwood through Nelson. Again, he's a little bit sideways coming out of the corner. Stuart Wiltshire down to third, but under pressure from the number one car of George Line, and all of this is bringing Robbie Watts into the mix as well. So great little squabble going on, almost four cars for second, third, fourth and fifth, pretty much together as they thread their way through Coreham onto the brakes, through the left-hander at Murray's, and start to accelerate and go back up through the gears once more. over the start-finish line. Wade Eastwood in second place now, but can he hang on to it? Because I'm sure Stuart Wiltshire, George Lyne and Robbie Watts will all have other ideas about keeping the order the way it is at the moment, and all of this really has allowed Jacopo Sebastiani to make good his escape and potentially head towards what would be a clean sweep of victories here, a hat-trick of wins at Snetterton. We saw Wade Eastwood do that at Silverstone earlier on in the year. We saw Shane Kelly do it at Donington Park earlier on in the year. Well, Jacopo Sebastiani is looking as though he's going to be the third driver this year that has made it a clean sweep of victories over the course of a treble header weekend, which it is this weekend. Towards the braking area for the left-hander at Agostini go the quartet, fighting over second, third, fourth and fifth position. Sixth place is Cian Carey. He's not that far behind either. In fact, there goes the Irishman just through the bottom of the shot, and Gino Ussi is pretty much within touching distance of him as well. So whilst it's 4 at the moment for second through to fifth place, if they hold each other up, don't rule out the fact that Cian Carey and Gino Ussi might join in the mix as well. So they slide their way out of Williams onto the Bentley straight once more. Robbie Watts looking to try and pick up the toe from the car ahead. Half the length of the Bentley straight is the advantage that Jacopo Sebastiani has now built up between himself and Wade Eastwood in second place, who's now been released a little bit from the clutches of Stuart Wiltshire. So it's sort of Wade Eastwood and then a slightly larger gap before we then see a trio, which is Stuart Wiltshire, George Lyne and the charging car in the hands of what is Robbie Watts, as they then turn their way up towards the conclusion of yet another lap once more through the right-hander at Coram, onto the brakes, in towards the left-hander at Murray's. The fight for third, fourth and fifth continues, albeit still in the same order. Stuart Wiltshire sitting in third place, the red and white car of George Lyne, the champion from last year, in fourth place. The blue machine with its silver flashes, Robbie Watts, in fifth place, whilst just up the road from them still is the second place car, Wade Eastwood, but by the look of things his advantage has grown by about another half a car length that time through, as the trio behind slow each other up. Here is the fight for places down towards the bottom of the top 10. This is Oliver Cyril making his debut in the championship, fighting away with championship regular Dave Gillette. Dave we've seen in the top 6 on a couple of occasions so far this year, but Oliver is ahead of him as things currently stand. Those two threading their way through Ritchie's, whilst the pack for second, third, fourth and fifth are into the braking area for Agostini. Nobody quite close enough to attack the other as they head through the left-hander. Then they will squirt the accelerator and head up towards Hamilton. As into the pit lane has come Tony Bishop. So Tony Bishop in the pit lane has had a bit of a difficult weekend really, what with spins and puncture and of course then this trip to the pit lane. It's been a bit of a weekend to forget for him. Race continues though, whilst he's in the pit lane, and back onto the Bentley straight goes the second, third, fourth and fifth place battle. There's Jacopo Sebastiani already turning his way through Brundle, and only now heading up towards the vehicle bridges Wade Eastwood, who looks fairly safe now, doesn't he, in second place. He has opened up the daylight between himself and Stuart Wiltshire in third place, who can also breathe a bit of a sigh of relief because George Lyne is not quite close enough to attack again this time through. So through the bomb hole again they will thread their way, and Jacopo Sebastiani, it is looking as though it is going to be potentially a perfect weekend here at Snetterton. 3 races, 3 pole positions, and well, at the moment 2 race wins under his belt, his first 2 of the season, and he is now heading over the start-finish line onto yet another lap here, and you can see the advantage that he has between himself and Wade Eastwood in second place is one where he doesn't particularly need to panic at this stage. So through Ritchie's corner goes what is the fight for third, fourth and fifth position, with Robbie Watts now not really applying as much pressure to George Lyne as he was doing a lap or so ago. The number 7 car in the hands of the man from Thundersley in Essex just seems to have settled in a little bit more. And as they then thread their way out of the left-hander at Palmer, again up towards Agostini, nobody is going to be quite close enough, so the gap's just starting to space out now between what is second, third, fourth and fifth position. That is a spin, and that's car number 18, Dave Gillette, that's got off, and looks as though as long as he can get the car fired back into life, he should be able to continue in the race. Yes, so a quick rotation for the number